Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to try and address some of the most common issues we have in soap making, where you have issues like a false trace or ricing, how you can fix it, some basic stuff like that. So I've already mixed up a little bit of charcoal with olive oil so I can get my color. Hopefully this will show up a little bit better in the video, and hopefully I can get this batch to rice for you so you can see what that looks like. I've got some fragrance oil right here. I've had it for a little while. I'm just going to go ahead and use the rest of that up. I've got my water. I've got my milk. Now I have noticed for my soap, if I use whole cow milk, which is what I've got here, that my soap almost always rices with it. So we're going to try and use that today to get this going. And then I've got my lye. Now you always want to make sure that your lye weight is at least equal to your water weight, otherwise your lye will not dissolve correctly and you'll end up with soap that has lye crystals on top of it. So maybe in another video I'll show you what that looks like, as well as soda ash and things like that. But today we're going to talk about ricing specifically, ricing and seizing. I'm hoping that this doesn't seize, but sometimes with the fragrance oils, the cow's milk kind of likes to do that. So we will see what we can get today. I'm going to add my water. I've only got a small batch. Now, mind you, follow safety precautions always. Well-ventilated area. Use gloves, other safety gear. You want to make sure you have all that good stuff handy. So just in case anything goes wrong, and as you can already tell, I've got some vapors coming off of that. Yep. So that's why we do the things we do. And when this clears up, I will start adding it to my coconut oil. Now, because my soap batch likes to rice when using cow's milk, which I've got over here, if I add my milk before I add my fragrance oil, sometimes that makes the difference in preventing ricing. But today I'm going to try and force a rice. So we'll be adding the milk to the oils before we add our fragrance. And that is looking fairly clear using heat transfer method. Let me set this down. You can take your spoon like this and pour your lye water over the top of your spoon. That will help prevent any kind of splashing, which is very, very dangerous. And also I might add, taking vinegar helps neutralize the lye, which I always do after soaping to clean off my countertops and things like that. Be very, very, very careful when mixing your oils and your lye. You don't want to have any kinds of splashing. Just kind of bounce that a little bit. I want to try and make everything melt. And what really helps too is if you have some kind of a colorant that you want to add into your soap, use olive oil to help break that down and make sure that the colorants, like especially if you're using micas, that ends up being really, really smooth so you don't end up with chunks of mica in your soap batch. So that's one way you can fix that too. And you don't end up with speckled soap, but actually a colored soap. So you get good coloring. Still gonna melt that a little bit more. Now, oil rivers, sometimes that happens when you are over exuberant and you think that you've got a false, or you think you've got a trace, which tracing is when you mix your oils and then you leave a little bit of a trail on top. Like if you've ever eaten pudding and you've scraped it with a fork, how your fork leaves a trail behind, that is tracing, at least for soap. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. There's all different kinds of trace. There's a light trace, medium trace, and then there's a really hard trace. I like using a light trace, which you leave just barely a hint of a trail behind, because that works best for hard oils that set up really fast, because it allows me to add my colorants and things like that a little bit quicker. Alright, so now I'm going to add in my color, because I want this video to hopefully show up on what a false trace and ricing looks like. So hopefully this charcoal will present that really well. As you can tell, that's a really smooth look already. Now it's not traced, this is just to emulsion, which is where the oils and the lye are kind of mixed together, but they're not at a trace yet, but you got to agitate everything to do that. Alright, so now that I've got that good and black, and this, you can see the light on there reflecting, alright, I'm going to go ahead and add my milk. I'm going to go ahead and give that a little stir as well. Alright, now as you can see, it's starting to get a little lumpy looking already, just from the cow's milk. I'm going to go ahead and do a blend really quickly. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this over here. Now I'm going to add my fragrance oil. Now I'll get either a little bit of a seizing effect. I hope I can show that. But I'll definitely get a ricing. It's already trying to do that already. You can see the lumpiness of it. See that? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add my fragrance oil to it. And it did not do it did not season this, so I guess that's okay. But you can see how it's a little bit rough looking. See all the bumps and stuff. That's what you want to try and avoid. Some people think, oh my goodness, just because it has that look to it, that you've hit a trace or that your oils are mixed enough. But as you can see, it's very runny still. So you can still have a lumpy look, but still have it be runny like this. So that's kind of what you'd get with a ricing effect. Sometimes you'll get bigger chunks than that, but sometimes you won't. So this is what that is. And one way that you can fix that is by blending it. So you want to make sure, and I don't know if you saw that, but there was a little bit of an oil river, an oil trail that started to show up. See that? You've got a little bit of oil, and then you've got a little bit of your soap. You want to make sure that you don't get oil rivers in your soap, because you'll end up with a lye heavy portion of your soap, and then you'll have oils that aren't saponified, and that will leak back out of your soap. And there we go. It's starting to become very smooth again. So that's one way you can avoid having a trace or a ricing like this does. I'm going to go ahead and stir that to where you'll have a smooth batter like this. So that's the difference between ricing and your false trace and a batch that is actually going to work, so you won't have problems by the time you get your unmolding done. So that will help you. I hope this explains some of that. Usually the seizing happens when you get just basically a whole lump of soap, and sometimes that'll be stuck on your blender. So this is at a light trace. I'm going to go ahead and do a medium trace. And that's a little bit of a, still at a light, but still kind of medium. So you can get different levels of tracing just by doing this. So I hope this makes sense to you guys and how you can avoid some of those issues. And I hope this video demonstrated some of it enough. I'm going to try and save this batch and go ahead and start pouring it. I don't really care how this turns out. I don't, you know. This is not one I plan to sell. So this one I was just doing as a demonstration to show you guys what sometimes goes on in some batches of soap. I'm going to go ahead and pour this. So if some of you like black coffee, well, this will work well, I guess. Oop, overfilled that. Just a little, but that's okay. Go ahead and just kind of swoop that back over here. I like trying to have nice smooth backs on my soap. It just makes it so much prettier. It also makes everything weigh about the same, so it just kind of levels it up. This isn't a full bar, so that would be considered an end, kind of. Since I'm not cutting my soap, I don't have any, bits of ends of stuff laying around. I just have a partial bar. Give this a little wiggle, give it a little tap. Make sure all the bubbles come up out of the top. Sometimes if you have a metal scraper like this, whoop, it's a little bit too full. Then you can smooth everything out real easily. Alright, go ahead and just scrape like a dat. Scrape like a dat. And there you go. Alright, so then this is just going to sit up and get solid, and I'll unmold this later on. Alright, but have a good one, and I hope this explains some of those soap making problems that some people deal with. Alright, have a good one. Bye now.